Welcome to a fantastic edition of Rebellion Research's educational series. I'm here with a gaming legend, a Lorne Weil, someone I've known for decades and a real hero of mine. Uh, Mr. Weil's work with scientific games is really impressive. He built uh, the games, as it was called, into one of the juggernauts in the gaming industry. Now he's running Inspired Entertainment, but his history is impressive. A degree from University of Toronto undergrad, then a master's from London School of Economics, an MBA from Columbia Business School, where he was a member of the Board of Overseers, a manager of the Boston Consulting Group, worked at General Instruments, and so happy to have you here, Mr. Weil.
Thank you, Alex. It's nice to
Wonderful.
be here.
Our pleasure. So let's jump to scientific games. Do you want to tell us about your involvement with the firm and how you grew it into the juggernaut it became?
Sure. So actually started uh, back in the 80s when a partner of mine and myself, we bought control of a company called Autotote,
Mhm.
which was a tiny, very, very early in the history of the gaming technology world that focused primarily on horse racing because that's really all there was then. Um, uh, then I built that business up to a significant size by the late 90s. I could see then that horse racing was not a long run growth business, but the technology that we had in horse racing was applicable to the lottery world, which I could see was a tremendous growth business. So we used Autotote to buy Scientific Games. And we changed the name of the company to Scientific Games. And then between 2000 and the end of 2013, when I decided I'd had enough of Autotote and Scientific Games after 25 years or so, we had built it from what was a couple of million in EBITDA when we bought Autotote to about 750 million in annual EBITDA at the time I retired from Scientific Games. So that's really the history in a nutshell.
Do you think lottery is still a future of uh, gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. I do, and we have a toehold in the lottery business in Inspire, but one of our main strategic objectives over the course of the next, 2 or 3 or 4 years is to significantly accelerate our participation in the lottery business because yes, I think it has an enormous future for any number of reasons. Uh, States and foreign countries tend to never run out of a need to raise money. I think we're actually we're coming into a period now. Uh, the way the political winds are blowing in America, where the states are going to be even more likely to be strapped than they are now,
Yeah, I agree with
and
that.
and they don't want to raise taxes if they can't help it. So the easiest and quickest way is to expand their lottery activities in order to raise more money without raising taxes. And in terms of the customer base who plays, people are much more comfortable with lottery than they are with a lot of other forms of gaming, like sports betting, for example, which is pretty intimidating for a lot of people. And um, and a lot of the lottery, certainly the number of the lottery things that we're working on right now are a lot more fun than traditional gambling opportunities. So I think the combination of the lack of intimidation and the opportunity for fun and uh, and the fact that the states are going to need the money, I think, makes me quite sanguine about certainly the next 5 or 10 years in the lottery business. Yeah.
New Jersey saw huge growth in casino revenues from allowing sports betting. So you
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of a like a one-time boost? You don't think, or do you think sports betting will continue to grow, or do you think it'll level off?
Um, it's very hard to say, but I think certainly um, the rate of growth that we've seen can't possibly be
No.
sustained, and the reason is because um, a relatively small percentage of the population plays sports betting, and they play very, they play a lot per player. So there's not an enormous opportunity to expand the population of sports betting players. Pretty much everybody knows what that demographic is, and
No.
it's pretty much established itself. Whereas with lottery and frankly other forms of casino gaming other than sports betting, so traditional iGaming addresses a much bigger audience than sports betting does, and this is why in states like New Jersey or Pennsylvania or Michigan, where they have both sports betting and uh, some people call it iGaming, some people call it iCasino, but anyways, it's online casino games. The gaming volume dwarfs the sports betting volume.
No.
Absolutely dwarfs it.
So while we're on the subject of New Jersey, do you think Atlantic City will still be what it is in 30, 50 years from now?
Oh, you know,
Not that it's that much, but I mean,
yeah, I was going to say, is that good or bad? Um,
it's
well,
supporting 14 major casinos, and I mean, outside of the casinos, it is a very depressing place to be, I'll tell you. But
yeah. Um, well, I think New Jersey, the casinos in New Jersey, in Atlantic City. I mean, it's they're dealing with a lot because you've got a bunch of extremely successful casinos in Pennsylvania that um, are very upscale and um, provide pretty much everything that casino gamblers want. And right now, there's the casino in um, at Aqueduct in the casino up in uh, at Yonkers Raceway. There are going to be, three major casinos in downstate New York. So I think the situation for Atlantic City is, looking long term, is they're essentially going to be surrounded
no.
by tremendous competition, and there's sort of only so much money to go around to play in casinos, particularly as the online uh, casino segment, grows. So, I mean, I, I think that's the reality that they're facing.
Well, as a New Yorker, are you happy with the casinos coming to Manhattan, or are you kind of impartial?
Well, we don't know that there's casinos coming into Manhattan for sure. We know there's going to be a casino somewhere in the metropolitan New York area. That could be City Field with the proposal that Steve Cohen has made. It could be at the former Trump golf course that Bally has.
My ex-father-in-law is trying to obviously bring one
I was
to
going to say that,
Hudson
yeah,
Yards.
and your ex father-in-law is trying to do it too, and four or five other people. So
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know whether. I mean, I don't know if the casino in Hudson Yards is a good idea. Um, it wouldn't bother me personally. I don't spend a lot of time there, and um, I don't really have a view personally whether a casino in Manhattan would make my life better or worse, but I have a feeling that most other people would rather have it not be in Manhattan, and that it be in one of the outer borough locations that people have talked.
London has those smaller gambling clubs. Do you think that
Well,
might
that's
be?
very different. Yeah, I mean that's a completely different thing, and I think that actually would be a very good idea for New York. For
A little classier?
a lot of different, they're classier and they're not as intrusive, and it also spreads the benefits economically around, much more broadly. But I don't think anybody has ever proposed that, as far as I know. But that's a very good question, Alex, and it's a maybe you could have ask your father-in-law to pitch that as an alternative to these big resort type casinos that people have been talking about.
No, no, might be a good idea. Well, circling back to scientific games,
Sure.
you have just had such a history of M&A, and
Yeah.
obviously you're a BCG guy too, so you've really you've done it from both sides, from the advisory and from the internal. When you made all of these acquisitions of scientific games, what was the hardest part towards bringing in the foreign entity into your entity? What was the most challenging part logistically? Was there kind of one, was it dealing with which people were valuable, which people had to
Yeah.
be given compensation to leave?
Well, the most valuable, the most important, I think somebody told me that a study that was done either by McKinsey or KPMG or somebody that, upwards of 70% of M&A transactions ultimately fail. I don't know if that's right or not, but I've heard that. And anecdotally, from what I've seen over the years, thank God, not my experience, but experience in general, is that doesn't surprise me.
Hmm.
The the most important thing in the M&A process, apart from making sure you really understand uh, fundamentally the business of the company that you're buying and where that business in theory is heading, is trying to understand in advance what the integration of the business with yours is going to be like, and what the operational issues are and what the cultural issues are. And
So really, the bigger the M&A, the more likely it will fail. Then it's kind of
there's no doubt about it. Absolutely.
because you look at AT&T and they just have such an immaculate history of failure when it comes to M&A over the last few years. I mean, what they paid for Time Warner, what they paid for, um, the satellite company Dish, they paid,
Yeah.
45 billion for Dish, which is
Right.
worth today like 7 or 8.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, what would long term is Dish worth anything really? Maybe.
Well, because the problem is that so many of these deals are concocted around the numbers, and there isn't nearly enough time devoted to really thinking through very clearly how the businesses are going to be integrated and how they're going to be managed going forward. People tend to leave that to after they've bought it. It's kind of like getting married to somebody that you don't know.
Oh.
And I think I think if I learned anything, after all the deals we've done over the years, is you really need to do that homework in advance so that there are no surprises, um, and you don't have buyer's remorse, which seems to happen all the time.
Yeah.
So, but you know what happens is that a lot of management, for whatever reason, they fall in love with a particular acquisition idea, because the numbers work out, and then they don't want to confront all the potential bad things, so they just sweep it under the rug. Then they do the deal, and then all the stuff starts coming out from under the rug, and by that time it's too late. So I think that's the toughest part.
Now, that's a great point that we're really learning from you that an M&A isn't about the numbers. It's about the integration of the assets with your current
100%.
business.
100%. Yeah.
Well, one thing I really want to cover, jumping totally far away, is Las
Sure.
Vegas. I really
Uh-huh.
want to hear your opinion on Las Vegas over the next 10, 20, 30 years and what you see happening with the town. Are you bullish on Vegas?
Well, I think, I mean, from what I see from my perspective, um, Vegas is not really so much about gambling anymore. I mean, I think particularly with so many, at one point, 40% of the visitation to Vegas for gambling came from California before California had, 100 tribal casinos.
No.
Some of them, like Agua Caliente, are as big and beautiful as anything they have in Vegas. So, um, I go to Vegas a few times a year. I go, and what I see is, the restaurants are packed. You can't get into a restaurant. You can't get into a club. um, 35-year-olds are spending $10,000 a day for a casino, for a cabana at the pool club, and everybody is spending, unbelievable amounts of money,
So you'd say it's more,
except for gambling.
so
So yeah,
it's more from really a gaming destination to really just kind of a leisure destination, if you will.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think as a leisure destination, um, it seems to be growing like crazy, and it's always busy. And I, I personally don't know of any reason why it wouldn't continue like that.
Whereas Atlantic City has its work cut out for it if it can ever transcend to that, become that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, the concept of, I mean, look, Atlantic City's got some great stuff that Las Vegas doesn't have. I mean, it's got an amazingly gorgeous beach,
It does.
and it's got, proximity to an enormous and very
I
wealthy.
was there for a wedding and I was swimming in the ocean. I was thinking to myself, God, this is 2 hours from New York in fun
100%.
clubs. I mean,
I
it's
totally agree with you. I mean, I've never really got it because um, now it's obviously, in January and February, it's a little bleak there, and there's no beach life and there's no swimming pool life. So, uh,
it seemed that Montauk reinvented itself, fairly quickly.
yeah,
Kind of.
um,
Whereas now Montauk is the hottest kind of, destination for young, wealthy people in the summer.
I know it's unbelievable. I mean,
It's amazing what's happened there.
I built, so when I got married for the first time in 1974, my mother gave me a little bit of money. And I had started going to Montauk when I started Columbia Business School in 1969.
Mhm.
So by 1974, I had spent a ton of time in Montauk, and decided that I would take the money that my mother gave me when I got married to buy a piece of land that I would build a house on. And I built this house in 1977.
But that's got to be one of the greatest investments ever.
Well, it certainly, in terms of multiples,
Multiple sale.
worked out remarkably well, because I think, my memory serves me, my mother uh, gave me $15,000, which I used to buy a little over a acre of land on the ocean, and then
Oh my God.
I spent about,
Yeah.
I don't know, $60,000 or $70,000 to build the house.
No, it's absolutely
So
insane.
yeah, but it is amazing what's happened there, and I remember, the what we used to jokingly say is that Montauk was a drinking town with a fishing problem.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, when it was a drinking town with a fishing problem, it was one of the great places in the world.
It was very special when I was a kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a little different now, but where your parents are in And Southampton isn't too bad either.
Oh,
So
no, no, no. But no, Montauk has the amazing geography, though. The ups and the downs, the
yeah, yeah,
climates.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely,
it's
100%.
almost reminiscent of Hawaii to me a little bit, actually. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's definitely fantastic. I mean, the certainly compared to the utter flatness of the whole rest of the Hamptons, the way Montauk has got is hilly and goes up and down, and the way it's got the ocean on all sides, and they've been, you know, there are more restaurants on the water in Montauk than probably the whole rest of the Hamptons put together.
that's a good point. So, last question, I'm going to let you go.
Okay, yeah,
Horse racing. How do
uh-huh,
you, that was something you got started on in your career.
yeah.
It, do you think it's kind of had its day? Do you think it's going to be a perpetual decline? Or if at the right price, would you buy a racetrack at this point?
um I would definitely buy a racetrack if it came with a license to have a casino in it.
There you go.
But absent that, um, I probably would not. I mean, there's just so much competition now.
No.
In horse now, in certain parts of the world, Australia, for example, horse racing continues to thrive, and it's very much in the culture, uh, of Australians, and in a way that it just sort of turned out that it wasn't, um, for Americans. And also there's, when I used to debate what the future of horse racing was, and when you talk about the competition, the question was horse racing a sport, or is horse racing just something to gamble on?
No.
And when I was a kid, I mean, I can remember every year, the Kentucky Derby was like the World Series. I mean, we knew every horse, and we knew every jockey, and so people had a huge interest in horse racing as a sport. But then there was a huge amount of gambling. But at that time, there was really no competition except for Las Vegas, with horse racing as a gambling vehicle, and there wasn't nearly the kind of competition for sports that you do now. Now there's, I mean, particularly with college sports, between all of the major sports, and now the MLS is growing, and the women's basketball league is growing, and the women's soccer league is growing, and college sports, for all practical
Too much
purposes,
competition.
is just so this the competition to sports racing as a horse racing as a sport is just overwhelming,
No.
and the same is true, for gambling. So it's just very, very hard to see how it can be anything but a very, very niche. Uh, I mean, I can see a time when there'll only be one racetrack in the whole country, and everybody who wants to race their horses will race them at that one racetrack, and everybody who wants to bet will bet online, or yeah, will bet online. I think that's sort of the end game.
But at the end of the day, lottery is the one kind of industry where the government is really your hand-in-hand partner, and it's accessible on the streets to every Tom, Dick, and Joe who wants to
Right.
a quick excitement at their 9 a.m. Deli shop. So
100%.
yeah, so lottery is your favorite aspect continually.
Lottery is my yeah. Lottery is my favorite aspect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, government indebtedness is definitely a problem we're going to be facing for a long time past both of our deaths, I think.
Well, certainly past mine. Mine will come long before yours. So maybe some miracle will happen, and that will
The miracle
change.
where government stops spending? That's quite the miracle.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, Alex.
Well, anyway, this was a pleasure.
No, me too. Anytime.
Yeah, we'll
Take
have
care.
wonderful holidays, Lauren.
Okay, thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.